Hey everybody, big earthquake just struck in Europe, 7.0 range. Let me get it on here on the screen. 7.7, almost 8.0 just struck at Turkey. Huge, massive earthquake for the area just north of Israel. We're here right at the border of Turkey and what looks like Syria. Let's get the information on the screen here. Let me get a display capture turned on. You'll probably hear the ding of the bell and a sound of a siren here in a minute in my voice saying 7.0. This is the biggest earthquake in the region in many years' time. First of all, let me just stress that right off the bat. It's a huge earthquake. Luckily, it's on land. However, with it being on land, that means there's going to be devastating damage with all the structures around the area, stone stack and so forth. It was probably felt all the way down to Israel and probably felt all the way north to the Black Sea and beyond. Might feel it over at Greece as well. Now, we have to talk about this, that there is the potential for other spreads of activity to spread out from this 7.7 quake. Now, they may downgrade it, they may upgrade it. It is the biggest earthquake in many, many years' time for Europe at all. And again, we're talking about a preliminary quake at 7.7. Let's get the information from the Europeans. There we go, central Turkey. And let's get the coordinates and put them in on Google Earth. We'll go look up the location and see what the nearest town is. This is all live. This just popped on the screen in the past few minutes. The earthquake struck, let's see, international time at 1:17 UTC. It's less than 8 minutes old. Likely still getting aftershocks in the area, and likely there's going to be a lot of damage and a lot of people hurt on this, guys. It's going to be pretty bad. All right, so we're right next to the area where I issued the warning for Turkey. I just issued the warning for Turkey in my video yesterday, and we warned them for 1 magnitude less than this, 6.0, in the 6.0 range, 5.9 to 6.2, something like that. I'll have to go back and watch my video to get the exact magnitude we warned for. We warned Turkey right here. And the earthquake has struck over on the east side of Turkey. We'll go also get a USGS plate boundary map open once the USGS reports in on this quake. USGS still doesn't have the quake. It's that fresh. So looking at the earthquake epicenter, I'm just going to zoom around, see if we find any nearby towns and cities, because that's going to be where there's devastating damage. Let's get the names of the borders, labels, places, and so forth turned on. Oktoprak, Samduluk. I'm probably butchering the way those are pronounced. Those towns. The nearest major town. Oh, wow. Look how big this place is. Oh, man. There's going to be a lot of damage, guys. I hate to say it, but Turkey's just got creamed here. And let's see. Gaziantep. Maybe there's a street-level view in the town. Oh, wow. They got all coverage from a Google car. Look at that. Let's go in and just take a quick look and see what the town looks like, what kind of buildings we're dealing with here. Oh, man. We're dealing with stone stack structures. We're dealing with, again, with a lot of stone stack structures. So look around, guys. When I talk about stone stack and I'm talking about being prepared for earthquakes, and you got to know what kind of building you're in. If you're in a building that's a stone stack like this, like an old warehouse or something, or even like this, you're going to be having some serious problems in a 7-point-something earthquake that's on land and somewhat shallow. So it's definitely going to be causing damage in this city at least, and then the nearby other cities likely have some damage. It probably was felt all the way as far north as the Black Sea and all the way as far south through Syria, going down into Jordan and North Israel. All of Lebanon probably felt that as well, and we're right on the plate boundary. So if you're just now tuning in, a 7.7, 7.5, the biggest earthquake in many years' time has struck in Europe, or South Europe, Mediterranean, and it's down in Turkey. Now, the spot that we warned was right here, and we were looking for a magnitude less. So I was looking for a magnitude less. However, when we're looking for a magnitude less and a magnitude more comes in, if it's in the same country, that's most likely the earthquake we're looking for. However, this is way, way, way bigger. We're talking 100 times or more powerful than what I was looking for. So it's a huge quake, guys. There's no doubt about that. We can go to the antipode of this, go all the way across the planet, and look through the planet to see the opposite side of the planet for this quake. So here it is. Again, there's the quake on the opposite side of the planet. And just to see where we are, looking through the planet, that brings us out somewhere down here at South America. Let's just make sure about that. No. Let me go back this way. Right about, I would call this the antipode. So the antipode, opposite side of the planet, it brings us in here. Okay. So off the eastern coast of New Zealand, or off the eastern coast of Fiji, is the opposite side of the planet from this. And the antipodes matter because we can get opposite side of the planet quakes within a few days of each other that are similar in size. So getting back to it, a huge earthquake has struck. Let's go click on this other event here where it's 7.5 or 7.7, depending on which quake you click on from the Europeans. It's a huge quake, whichever way you want. Oh, hold on. This is the USGS weighing in. USGS is just now weighed in, guys. We'll wait for this to ring through. Sorry, this is my notice so that if a big earthquake hits, I wake up.
7.0.
7.8, the USGS is bringing it in at. 7.8, they have it at Nurdaji, Turkey. They don't have any felt reports on this, but then again, this is the USGS. I don't know how many people are using a USGS app to check the quakes over there. They have it down at 24.1 kilometers deep, which is pretty shallow for a quake like this, most likely causing some serious damage. Like I said, let's go look at the quake boundary map. This is what I was waiting for from the USGS. Okay, look where the red quake is. That's where the 7.8 is. Huge quake. Right at the bend of the plate boundary. You see how it makes a steep bend to the north and south there? Now, over to the east, you see the red line there. That comes out of Iran and so forth. Goes over all the way over into Greece. Now, I issued my warning for this area right here, and the earthquake has struck right here at the other bend. Why are we watching for any kind of activity to come in? Well, there's been a big push that's taken place, but it's all been in the 5 to near 6.0 range. 5 to near 6, so 5.8, 5.9, striking off the coast of Japan. 5.8 to 5.9, striking down in South America. 5.8 to 5.9, striking at Papua New Guinea. Those were 3 near 6s that struck. Then, followed by this, just a huge step up. This is a big quake, and it likely caused devastating damage around the earthquake epicenter. Let's see what the USGS has on the stats for this aside from the depth. See if there's any technical information they have right now. I don't see any stations listed yet. Magnitudes. Yeah, we got a body magnitude at 6.6. But they're not showing us the stations yet, what's going to be picked up there. Europeans, whether you go with the Europeans or whether you go with the USGS, we're dealing with 7.5 to 7.8 now, preliminary. That may go up or down, but it's still a huge quake, whichever way they take it. Even if they shaved it off down to a 7, it would still be a huge quake for the area. But this one is the biggest in years for the area. We don't have any tsunamis to worry about right now, as far as I know, unless there's an undersea landslide or something that takes place, which can happen, but it would be a localized tsunami. Waves you would hear about, maybe you would hear about them in a video or something that would show up of waves rising suddenly from some kind of undersea mount collapse or landslide that took place in the water there. But other than that, it's on land. While it's good news to not have a tsunami, it's bad news for it to be on land in a place like this, which is densely populated. You saw the city that is nearest there, just a few miles to the east. I want to say that's maybe, well, here, let's go put the USGS coordinates in and just see if that changes the location at all. Wow, big earthquake, guys. This is not going to end for Europe anytime soon now. Now we have to up the warning for Italy by a full half magnitude to almost a full magnitude. Italy is now going to be on watch for up to near 6.0 instead of 4.9. We're going to raise it by a magnitude. Here are the coordinates from the USGS. So I am going to have to extend that warning for Italy and Greece. If you're just now tuning in, a massive earthquake has struck over in South Europe, over in Turkey. We are just 15 miles. This reminds me of like Norcia, 20 miles at the most. So yeah, they felt that across that city. Certainly caused likely some pretty big damage. Now look how many other towns are nearby. These are big towns. They from this height or elevation. Well, that's not a town. I'm sorry. these towns. So, we start getting into thousands of people. I need to have it on the screen so I can show you what I'm talking about. You get into a densely populated area like this where all the streets are just so densely packed, and then you get into each side street and it's made out of stone stack buildings like these, 20 miles from a 7.8. This, again, reminds me of like Norcia, but the construction's worse. It's like cinder block as opposed to stone stack cobble that's hundreds and hundreds of years old. All right, so we're talking about 20 miles from the nearest big city and maybe 10 miles to the nearest town. It was likely felt around here, major damage around this area. Let's just measure out about 100 miles and just see how far that takes us out. Because I would think we'd get pretty intense damage out about 100 miles. You remember Ridgecrest, California, right? Ridgecrest was felt from Ridgecrest all the way over to the ocean, and people's pools were sloshing back and forth as far away as the ocean front. But here's 100 miles. 100 miles takes us down here. 100 miles takes us down here. 100 miles takes us over to the west this far. And 100 miles takes us up this far. So just as a point of reference, 100 miles, I would think we would probably have some pretty significant damage around here. That goes around this, somewhere like this. So Syria would be feeling it. That's where I would think damage would be. And then further out, you'd get your house shaking, you'd get lamps shaking, you'd get things maybe falling off shelves, maybe further down to the south by Lebanon, and further over to the west, maybe out another 100 miles or so. Same with up to the north. And then beyond that, you'll still feel it. There would be shaking. There would be going on the plate boundary over to the west as far as Rhodes, I'd think, and probably as far down, maybe as far south. There might be some weird stuff that starts to happen along the plate boundary down by the Dead Sea. You might start to, just weird anomalies like flushing caves and just weird things that might happen with geothermal features and so forth that are in the area. So keep an eye on that. This is a huge quake for the whole region. It's the biggest in years for the region. And I want to say we have to go back to maybe 2012 to get this size of a quake in Turkey. Maybe it was 2013. So a fair amount of time. If you're just now tuning in, USGS now has it at 7.8 still, and the Europeans have brought it back up to 7.6. Wow. Okay, we're going to pull the coordinates now from the Europeans, and before we do that, actually, let's go back to the USGS map and click on the information from the USGS. If there is any kind of tsunami, they will put out a tsunami warning, I think, for the area. So if there is some kind of detected wave from this, but again, it's on land. I would think that it's far enough inland that the chances of some kind of, landslide out in the ocean from this would be less, but we'd have the major damage within maybe 100 miles of the epicenter of this quake. It's a big deal. This is a big deal now. Now that we understand that this big earthquake has struck, let's go back to the USGS plate boundary map, show you the red line. See, the red line looks like a W. Goes over into Crete, Greece, and then it goes up into Italy. See, up in Italy, the plate boundary dead ends, and then over to the west, the plate boundary carries on across North Africa, goes out to the T intersection, out at the Azores. This is like a giant storm dropping a lot of rain on a river, or next to a river. And so the flow is going to be increased, the amount and the speed of the flow should be going up into Italy, dead end up into the north. And I already have a warning going in the Adriatic Sea. Warned them yesterday for 4.9. We're taking that up by a whole notch. We're going to take it up to near 5.9. This is like a deluge, and you live along the river. Now, the river goes up into North Italy, but it doesn't stop there. The USGS map stops there with the plate boundary. But really, if you go down and across, well, let me show you. It makes a hook bend up past Turin and Milan, but then our mountain ranges themselves follow this contour of the plate, and the earthquakes follow that contour. So even though the plate boundary stops there, the flow goes back down towards Gibraltar, and if it's a big enough push, it goes right across Central Europe, over here to the UK, and out to the North Pole, following the arrows. Now, I think all of our arrows are going to be inundated with a huge flow. Like I said, this is a big rainstorm, if you will, that drops a lot of rain on a river. And you have a three-way fork where it could go downstream. So big flow here, gets to here, splits three ways evenly. So if we're going to get a 5.9 to near 6 striking in Italy, I would also warn for near record earthquake activity over at Ukraine and Romania. So somewhere in the 6.0, when I say record, it'll just be in the last several years, somewhere in the near 6.0 range as well in Eastern Europe. Now finally, in the middle point here, right where the little arrow is, this is a dead end point where the flow comes in and goes around the outside edge of Europe. And when that happens, there's usually a breakdown here next to Albania. So we have Albania, we have Bosnia. I would warn all three locations. They're all right next to each other. We're going to probably see, by the end of this week, 3 different 5.9s or near 6s striking across Central and Eastern Europe. It's a big deal. Now, a subsequent new earthquake has struck next to about, I would say, 50 miles downstream from the 7.8. Look at that. A new 6.2 has been reported about 50 miles downstream. When I say downstream, I mean over to the west. So here's our original quake, and now a new 6.2 is struck pretty far over to the west. This is following the main path we would expect for this to flow. We would expect this to go over to the west, the flow. So to get a new 6 over to the west already means the flow is already going over to the west. I guess that's good news. It's not hanging around long, but it's spreading. So there's our first 6.2 spreading out and away. Let's go get the coordinates on it and see. Yeah, let's go do a measurement and just see where this brings us in. The depth on this one is 110 kilometers deep, so something is breaking down below and up above at 24 kilometers deep and now down at 110. Oh, something's breaking there, guys. We might even see I'm not going to say that we're going to see a larger earthquake on this, but when I see 2 different earthquakes this far apart, one down at 110, the other up at 24 kilometers, further to the east, I just want to measure, okay? So let's do that. Let's measure from the earthquake epicenter here of the new 6.2, and then measure over to the east, just roughly over to that town, and just see how far we are. Yeah, it's 70 miles, 65, 70 miles, something like that. Let's just say it's 60 miles. 60 miles over to the west, a new 6.2 is struck on the other side of the plate boundary. So let's go back. Up, a new 8. A new 8 has just struck. Dear God. $8.0. It's the first 8 in years for the whole planet. Well, I hypothesized right. A new 8.1 has just struck at 1:28 UTC to near 1:30 UTC. It's the biggest earthquake on the planet in years. Right on the plate boundary, right next to the previous break. It now is broken down to the south. This, I guarantee, was felt as far south as Egypt and as far north as, let's just say, Poland. It was probably felt as far east as Iran. If you don't know these countries, let me show you. Iran is this far over to the east, 1,000 miles. I would also make a good guess that it was felt in South Ukraine or Russia, whatever you want to call it now. Over to the west, I would expect it to be felt as far west along the plate boundary as South Italy. It's the biggest earthquake in years. They may downgrade it to 7.9. I wouldn't be surprised if they did, because we can't be having this kind of activity all back to back. So those were precursor earthquakes. Now we have an extremely large quake, 8.1, throwing on the feed. I cannot stress this enough. This is a mega quake now level that we're at. Today is day 15 of my 14-day watch for a mega quake to strike on the opposite side of the planet. The antipode, so to speak, but not really. I was looking on the opposite side of the planet all the way over here for this to happen. To get it down within 14 days on the largest earthquake for the planet in years, I guess that's a correct earthquake forecast hit for the planet. But there it is, 8.1 quake. Now let's get the stats on this from the U.S. Do they have it at the USGS yet? Not yet. So let's get it from, hold on. They just wiped it. It's back to, they now have put it in at 7.8. I told you they were going to downgrade it. I couldn't click on it fast enough. All right, well, there we are. They took it up to 8.1. Now we're down at 7.8. They're going to play around with it for a little while. Huge earthquake on the feed, regardless of which way you want to go. So is this a second quake, I guess, would be the question. Let's go take a look. Or is it the original quake that they're just bringing in and taking it up to 8.1 temporarily? That is also a possibility, that the 8.1 we just saw get reported there is the original quake. Dear God. Okay, let's hit refresh on the original quake from the Europeans. That will be probably the best guess of what we're going to get. 7.8. That's what we're dealing with. Let's go over the Kandilili Observatory over in Turkey and see what they have it at. Sorry, I'm getting a sip of my coffee while we're doing that. Boy, I wouldn't even know where to check this site. Do they have an English translation on here? Yeah, English. Latest earthquakes. Sorry, guys, I've never been on this site before, so I don't even know where to begin. They have it a preliminary at 7.4, I think. That needs to be updated. That's old. Okay. We'll wait and see what... This is the Turkish agency. I would even think that they're completely inundated right now. They probably won't be updating for a little bit. So, as it stands right now, between 7.8 and 8.1 has dinged onto the feed and off the feed. Started in at 7.7. One went down to 7.6. The other has brought it up to 8.1. Now taking it back down to 7.8. This is going to go back and forth like this. Don't be shocked if you hear another 8 ding on the feed as they bring the magnitudes up and down, doing the official measurement. Now, that is a huge earthquake, whether you want to look at it at 7.8, 8.1, 7.5, even down to a 7. So whether you shave a full magnitude off on it even, we'd be shaving a lot of power off even if we took it down to a 7. Still a massive quake. So I want to stress this, that this has likely caused insane damage around the area. We'll get video on this at some point, but it's going to be pretty troubling when we do. The amount of stone stack buildings that are right next to that by 20 miles, and them dinging that in at 8.1 and taking it down to a 7.8. Now, what happened to that 6.2? Let's go see that. Hold on. They deleted the 6.2. Did they? No, they didn't. Okay, I'm sorry. They brought this... No. They did not delete the 6.2. They brought it up to a 6.3. It's still at the area 60 miles to the west. So, recapping. Huge earthquake is struck. Dinged in at 8.1. First 8 that we've had on the planet in years, right? Or at least a year. It's been a long time. For it to strike here on the plate boundary means everybody downstream absolutely must pay attention over the next several days. Okay, so who's downstream? Look at the arrows. Look which way they go. They split 3 ways like a prong and go around the outside edge of Europe, around through Romania, Ukraine, Poland, and out through North Europe, following to the North Pole. Second spot is the tiny arrow, goes through Albania, up into Bosnia, points all the way toward Austria up here, and the third arrow goes up into Italy. Now, the warning at the Adriatic Sea, as well as the warning over here at Albania, Bosnia, both should be in the 5.9 range. I would put the bigger activity potential to go around the outside edge of Europe on the east side and through Italy, where the center is getting less. So if we're going to get a 5.9 here, then I would warn Italy for a 5.9 here. And then slightly bigger, I would warn over to the east. I'd warn for like a 6 to 6.1 to 6.2. One of the biggest earthquakes in years over in Eastern Europe. Should take place in the next several days. Now, a new aftershock has struck between the two earthquakes, coming in at 6.7. So now we're connecting between these two spots, between the 7.8 to 8.1 and the 6.3. I think it's important to go look at the USGS plate boundary map now, because this is going to make some sense. We have the 6.7 and the 6.3 and the 7.6, USGS carrying one of them, right? So over here, up here, and down here. It's like a triangle of quakes. The USGS needs to have that other quake on the feed there. Let me zoom in and show it where it should be. Europeans are reporting the 6.3 over here to the west. So now 3 quakes, and this new quake, look where it struck. It struck right at the pinnacle tip of that plate boundary. And that plate boundary goes down and over past Cyprus, over past Crete, look where it goes, and up into Italy. Now, USGS doesn't have anything over to the east at all across Eastern Europe, but I've got my arrows there to show you which way to watch the flow to go. And the reason the flow goes that way, that's the shape of the craton. So we're not talking about plate boundaries now. Now we're talking about the interior parts of plates that move and the way the seismic flow goes across those plates. Anything else going on that needs to be mentioned? A new deep earthquake struck down in New Zealand, but this is the big one for the planet, guys. This is the biggest quake in years for South Europe, Mediterranean. It was likely felt as far south as Israel and as far north as the Black Sea, maybe even Crimea going up into Ukraine. Probably felt as far east as Iran and as far west as Greece, maybe even beyond. But certainly within 100 miles of the epicenter, we can expect major damage. So that includes Syria, that includes Turkey, that includes several cities with stone stack structures that are numbering in the tens of thousands. Now, I need to take everybody back just a few days back. Last week, 5.9 to 6 struck over here in Iran, and the whole world ignored it. They were begging for help. I know that, whatever goes on but politically, but regardless, huge earthquake struck in Iran, but it's a full magnitude and a half under. It was a 5.9 to 6. This is a 7.8 to near 8.1. It's the first 8 that I've heard ding on the feed in years. I think. I want to say years. It might have been a year. You hardly ever hear the ding of that 8.1 or 8.0 bell. And you got to hear it. It's the bridge alert sound from Star Trek. And the reason I've got those is so that if I hear that at a distance, I know to come running in here like a fireman to jump into my suit and suit up and get online. Talk to you. So I'm glad I've been recording this whole thing. Started recording right when it struck. So this whole thing has been caught live as it's been happening. Time now is 7:50 p.m. The date, the 5th of February, 2023. Sunday night here in the States. It's already Monday internationally overseas. So what a way to start the week. Much love to my viewers over in Turkey. This is why it's important to have an earthquake plan. It's why it's important to have an emergency kit. You may only have a few seconds to grab a kit as you're running out the door. If you're in a stone stack structure like in those cities, I almost want to go take another look at the cities because look, let's find the nearest spot to the 7. Again, this is the Gaziantep. I can't pronounce that, but we've got full coverage of the whole city in some kind of massive drive-through of the whole city. Look how densely packed these streets are. Look at those buildings. Look how close together they are. And look what they're made out of. Okay, you get the picture. There's certain things we know do not fare well in large earthquakes, and that is cinder block and stone stack structures. So these walls, boom, can come falling down easily within a few seconds of a large earthquake. Literally within a few seconds. Big break comes through, next thing you know, it falls over. You can watch videos of that kind of stuff from all over the world. The good news I've got on this is that we were warning Turkey. We warned them for an earthquake. However, the warning was for right here. All right. I'm going to save this as a video and upload it to YouTube. At this point, we need to get it out to the world so the rest of people can see it. It might not be talked about on the news for a minute, but then again, it's right at that evening news cycle time. They may cover it. It's going to be devastating damage for South Europe. I guarantee that. We'll get lots of videos out of the area eventually, and they're going to need our help, guys. They are. They're going to need world help. It's going to be a big deal right around in there. The whole city has probably been completely cut out or whatever. The chances of this not causing serious damage, I don't know. There's a light chance that this wouldn't cause damage, but with a 6.3, a 6.7, a 7.8 spread out across 60 to 70 miles on the plate boundary, That amount of shaking right there is going to cause some serious, serious damage. And with stone stack structures, they're going to need help digging out. Oh, man. Pray for the people in Turkey. I would encourage you to have an earthquake plan. I will be doing a new update here probably in the next hour. I will upload this to YouTube so we can watch it back, and then I will do another update after that. There will likely be other follow-up earthquakes that are similar in large size, maybe not as high as 7.8, on the opposite side of the planet within 7 to 10 days. 7 days, I'm sorry. Within a few days on the opposite side of the planet, which puts, of all the people down here, at New Zealand. Now, is it any wonder that New Zealand just popped off with 2 new deep earthquakes down below it? It's the antipode of what's on the opposite side of the planet. Looking through the planet, there's our big quake. And we go just off the east coast of New Zealand right here, and that's the exact antipode, which just so happens to also be the exact antipode, or the magnetic conjugate point of a few high-power radio wave facilities that many people might know about. Up in Alaska, for instance, has a magnetic conjugate point right here off the coast of southeast New Zealand. Interesting, right? Well, getting back to it, on the opposite side of the planet from there, that's where our big event has just struck. I'm not going to jump onto Twitter and try and show you shaking, although you probably could. It would be pretty easy to probably find that footage right now. Do you guys want to go over and check? I don't want to step on anybody's copyright. Some people get sensitive about that if they record footage. Might also contain something that I can't show on YouTube. People in collapsed buildings and so forth. That stuff gets kind of hit on YouTube. I don't blame them, okay? So, USGS is reporting the second earthquake, 6.7, and the 7.8. They do not have the 6.2 in there, which is a separate event from either of the others. So, looks like they're missing a quake right now. I don't know what to make of that. A new quake has now been reported downstream from the 6.3. Okay, guys, we're now traveling over to the west even further, a 4.2. It's just small. Proof that the break is taking place across this whole triangular bend of the plate, going further to the west now. So the whole thing's breaking apart right there at that pinnacle bend. No doubt about that. Whether it's 7.8 or 8.1, 7.5, we'll see what they finally come in at with the magnitude. Much love to the people in Turkey, guys. One more time. I cannot stress it enough. Will you guys please put together an emergency kit? Just something that's got the change of clothes, set of shoes, flashlight, battery, food and water for a couple days. And have it somewhere ready to go. And then when we're watching this flow go across Italy, for instance, or over into Eastern Europe, you'll be ready. Or at least you'll be more prepared than the people who are living all around you who haven't prepared at all. And that's good. If you're more prepared than other people, at least you're in a better situation for food, water, clothing. It's wintertime in the northern hemisphere here. I don't know so much about down there in the Mideast in Turkey. I think it stays pretty warm down there. That is good news. But then again, they do get snow in the winter and so forth, so it might be somewhat chilly there at night. You get displaced outside in the cold. If it's below 50 degrees, you know how it is, guys. Below 50, you're going to be in some serious trouble. So be safe. And I'll be back likely within the hour with a new update. Let's go ahead and save this as a video now and upload it over on YouTube.